That's right. Our guest joining us for our national politics panel is Brock Pierce, currently running for president of the United States as an independent candidate, and Eddie Scarry, a nationally recognized journalist for the Washington Examiner and author of Grow Up and Vote for Trump, Why 2020 is Your Last Chance to Become an Adult. Thanks for joining us on the Chris College Show. And let's get right on into it because we have some breaking news. There is a report that the Biden family took money from China, Russia, and Ukraine. And Tony Bobulinski is ready to report to Congress that the Biden family was accepting pay to play. So, Eddie, Marissa and I watched last night's debate. Why is this important?
It's important because it implicates the person who wants to be president, who is Joe Biden. It's his son, and really it's not a story about his son. It's about whether he lied about knowing what his son was doing, whether he got rich off of what his son was doing. He's denied that. He's denied it for years. And yet we're now seeing very, very strong evidence, stronger evidence than anything that had to do with Russia, anything that had to do with Putin and Trump being in Putin's pocket, all these things that we heard about for the last 3 years. There's a lot more evidence to this than there was of that. And there might be people who say nothing illegal happened here. This happens. This is an issue that has gone on for as long as time. And yet people need to understand and know whether the vice president, the former vice president, has been lying to them all this time. That's why it's important.
That's right. And Brock, what are your thoughts about this new breaking story that's being reported, as of early as Friday morning?
Well, I think it's important that the American public have all the information, as much information about both candidates so that we can make informed decisions. And I would like to remind every American that, a big part of what life is about is acting according to our conscience. And on that same note, we should be voting our conscience, voting for whatever candidate it is that we believe in. And again, the future is going to happen to you or it's going to happen with you. So make sure to vote. Every single one of us.
I love it. And I love that you mentioned that. That's great, Marissa. I love that. That's how we're going to be switching from talking points here on there.
And snap for both of you. Snap. I loved it.
But Brock, I got to say, you're like the first billionaire hippie I've ever spoken to in my life. You're probably the first billionaire I've probably ever spoken to. And my biggest thing is I knew you were an early investor in Bitcoin. So what am I sleeping on about cryptocurrency, and is this what you meant by the visionary 20s?
Well, no, I think the visionary 20s is coming from, what year is it? It's the year 2020. It's the year that things are meant to become clear. I think that truth and everything is going to be coming to light. All will be revealed. And buckle your seatbelt. That's more of what I mean by visionary. And they called the 1920s the roaring 20s. And so I like to think of this decade as the soaring 20s, as like a phoenix rising from the ashes. America is going to soar back into the leadership role that it should have been in for some time now.
Well, can you tell my bank account that? Because right now it's the tanking 30s.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, the American dream is dying. I am so heartbroken. So I've spent my whole life as an entrepreneur, basically building things out of nothing. And my heart is just breaking for every small business owner, every mom and pop, everyone that is being not allowed to work. I've been going around the country. Yesterday, I was in Minnesota, Illinois, Iowa, and Wyoming. I'm in Wyoming today. I was just in Alaska. And so I'm getting around the country. I am shaking hands. I am getting out there. And what I see, I'm very concerned. I guess that's why I'm running.
Hey, that's what I like. So, Brock, let me throw it at you with like this, because you have a lot of guts running for president of the United States 4 months prior to Election Day, as record-breaking numbers show that 42.1 million people from 45 states have already cast a vote as of Thursday morning, either by mail or in person. And growing up all my life, I've been told, sure, you can vote for a third party, but you're throwing away your vote. What makes you different from the two-party system?
Well, my whole life as well. If you haven't seen this Simpsons episode from 1996, a UFO crashes into the Capitol, and Homer Simpson comes out and pulls the masks off the two candidates, and they turn out to be space reptiles. And they're like, ha, 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 but you have to vote for one of us. It's a two-party system. And someone's like, yeah, but I'll vote for a third party. And they're like, yeah, throw your vote away. No, I was just doing a press conference the day before yesterday in Minnesota with Jesse Ventura. And when one of the political correspondents asked him that same question, he said, yeah, like the 38% of Minnesotans that threw their vote away voting for me. Oh, wait, I won. Mic drop. Again, we are supposed to act according to our conscience. And another quiz or trivia question for you. Who was the last third party candidate to win and become president?
That's a great question.
Abraham Lincoln was a third party candidate. Most people don't study history enough to realize that, but he was the third party candidate. The Republicans.
I had no idea. I knew he was a Republican president. And he ran three times. I know he ran three times, but I did not know that.
But let me throw this at Eddie, because Bernie Sanders ran for 40 years as the longest serving independent in U.S. congressional history to only switch parties to run for the president of the United States, which leads me to my question. Will we ever see an independent candidate break up the two-party system?
Sorry, was that for me?
Yeah, that was for you, Eddie.
Sorry, there was a little bit of a glitch. Will we ever see? I don't think so. And not only that, but I don't think we need it. I know that there's a lot of people who say that third parties there's a need for a third party. Well, no, what you just do is you do what Trump did. You do what the Tea Party did back in 2014 in the US, was you have different people come and say, we have different ideas. We share, we have some commonalities, but we're going to run within the same party. We're going to run within the system, and we're going to change it. We're going to work with what we have. There's a two-party system. We have that for a reason. A little bit of a civics lesson, not to be too boring, but it's because the presidency is the top prize, and it's much easier to compete for that when you just have two major parties.
Brock, do you want to respond to what Eddie just said? Do you believe that?
Yeah. So our own government admits as a fact, as a truism, that systems of two are fundamentally broken and always lead to monopolies and collusion. That is what we created antitrust laws around. Literally, it's considered a truism, stated as such. And so I disagree with that point. And I do believe that the independents, the moderates, the normal Americans are the majority. So 43% of eligible voters are not voting. 70% of Republicans and Democrats are unhappy with their party. And independents are larger than both the Democrats and the Republicans. By 2024, 38% of registered voters will be independent.
I want to just jump in real quickly because Eddie, Brock has this thing about, because I'm an independent. And I have no problem voting Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green, whatever. I vote on my conscience. So I have two candidates right now. And I read your book, Grow Up, be an adult, vote for Trump, right? And there was some really wonderful stuff inside that book. But when I look at two candidates and I'm like not really happy with either, like that's where it's like, should I just have my vote go to that third party or suck it up? Because it's going to be one of the two parties that vote.
Right. Well, that's the thing, is you have a choice, that there is no monopoly. There are many, many parties out there, just like there are many, many different types of soft drinks out there. But there are two main ones that are very, very popular, Pepsi and Coke. You go to a restaurant, that's what you're probably
man, I like my root beer. Come on now. Be fair.
Well, you can choose root beer. You can choose to vote for a different party. There's many things, but it is, again, that's just the way the system is built. The fact that the presidency is the top prize in politics. I don't see a reason for a third party to come along and do anything. You just simply work within the parties and change them.
All right, sounds good. But now we're going to switch topics, because I'm going to start with Eddie with this one, because, I'll go over to my homie's pad and, we'll pound a 30 rack of beer, right? And they don't even recycle their cans, including plastic bottles. And what makes millennials believe that the Green New Deal will go into effect when we couldn't agree on the Paris Climate Agreement?
Well, I guess there's a lot of wishful thinking, and that's fine. I actually do not begrudge. I think it's a good thing that you have someone like Congresswoman AOC coming out and putting forth a plan that she believes in and thinks this is a bold new idea. I think that's needed more frequently than not.
Do you think millennials gravitate towards AOC? Because sometimes I think she's sexy. I mean, people think that's what she's a good looking girl, and she's not like Katie Porter holding a whiteboard. Truthfully, I mean, do you think that's some of the reason why people gravitate?
I'm gonna jump in and say, Chris, you should be thinking about her mind and not just how sexy she is. I am jumping in as a female right now just to call you out.
I'm just jumping in as a male. And sometimes I feel like that's why people gravitate towards her. I mean, she just got the 3rd highest Twitch stream as of this week. I mean, do you think that plays a bit of an influence?
Well, that's life in general. Yes, if you're attractive, people will pay attention to you. That's just the way it works. But I do find her to be very quick-witted. She has demonstrated that. Maybe not the smartest person in the room, but very quick. Yes, of course, attractive. That always helps. But also just very bold. She puts forward some very bold ideas, and that's very important too.
And Brock, how is it possible to fight climate change when China, India, and Russia, to name a few, aren't on board? I mean, it's called global warming for a reason.
Well, yeah, we share one Earth, but I think, again, it's back to acting according to our conscience. America has the ability to lead by example, and I think that is our responsibility. I think that we can step up and do that. Now, the good news is the private sector, again, I'm a business person that has created things out of nothing over and over again, typically impossible things, meaning things that have never been done before. And so the good news is renewable energies are there. Coal is no longer a cost-effective means of energy production. Coal plants are being converted to natural gas because they can't compete with renewables. So we are making progress, and we can hopefully get away from plastics. One of the things on my platform is the idea of legalizing nature. I know that sounds crazy.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Well, it goes back to 1932. We outlawed hemp so that DuPont could create and sell plastics. They couldn't compete with hemp-based products, and so they outlawed it. And so I think that re-legalizing nature, creating we're on a good path. Again, we have a lot of problems, and innovation is the answer to those problems. We have 21st century solutions, so let's keep on innovating. Let's make sure that America stays the capital of innovation and that we are big winners as we come out of this 4th industrial revolution.
But
well,
then how do we then get India and China to jump on board? I mean, because there's a whole thing. I get you have Trump saying we're going to tariff, we're going to go after them, but how do we actually get the 2 largest polluters in our world to actually not stop polluting? I mean, how do we as Americans, how can we get them to do that? I have no idea.
Well, I think that you hit the nail on the head there. Part of it is trade policy. So I'm a systems designer and I study systems. What we incentivize is what we get. And so if we started to structure our trade policies based upon our values, based upon our principles, and incentivized the things that we care about, it would have an impact over time. But again, the onus is on us to lead by example, to know what we value, to know our principles, and to incentivize with trade policies those things we wish to see in the world.
Okay, but let me throw this at Eddie, because California Governor Gavin Newsom calls for a transition in electric cars by 2035. But there's a study from the Automotive Science Group that shows US, Europe, and even in China, producing electric cars creates more greenhouse gas emissions than producing an equivalent gas-powered vehicle. And it's already such a pain in the ass to recycle electronics. I mean, it's a pain to get rid of your television.
They're not getting recycled.
But hold up, Marissa. The thing is, how are we going to be able to recycle lead-acid batteries, Eddie? I mean, you can't even go up into the air with a lithium-ion battery because you could blow it up. What makes people think that we can recycle electricity by 15 years?
I mean, these are, again, like if the purpose is to shift the conversation and make it to where, this is acceptable to talk about, and this is what it's aspirational. fine. But like you're saying, and I think just like Marissa was going to say, recycling is not really a thing. I was just looking it up. I was just kind of curious, looking it up, and recycling, it's not cost effective. There's very, very little benefit, if anything. It can't be measured in any kind of way. I do it. It's the law in DC, but I do it in hopes that maybe it does something. But no, I think all it's going to serve to do is drive more people out of California. People are already leaving, and just DC is a very, very liberal, I think the most liberal still city in America, and just everything gets worse and worse. The more they try to tinker with these things, people are leaving, and I think it's only just a matter of time before I do the same.
Sounds good. All right. Well, Brock, I'm going to throw this one at you because 2020 feels like I'm living in the Salem witch trial, truthfully. And do you believe that there's a double standard in regulating content on social media? Because you can have underage users go on Twitter and view porn, no problem. But when someone posts an article from the New York Post, it's immediately censored to the American people. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I care a great deal about our constitutional rights, and free speech is like paramount to liberty, to having the society that I think America was intended to be. And the fact that content is being censored is very alarming, very concerning. And I know everybody's noticing it this week, but as someone that is, on the forefront of technology, on the forefront of innovation, this censorship has been going on for years. This is not a new issue. It's finally been brought to the surface and we're all aware of it. It's a major issue. And we need to do something about it. The moment our speech is censored, that is the end of a free society. And I'm concerned, very concerned.
I agree, because I feel like we've been dealing with censorship since the Greeks, but now we're dealing with technology. And this is what leads me to Eddie, because should millennials be concerned with regulations of social media, or would regulations become an infringement of our First Amendment right?
Well, I am, up until probably the last few days, I was firmly in the libertarian, as much as I hate libertarians, I was firmly in the libertarian camp of not doing any kind of regulations with Facebook and Twitter. If you don't like it, delete your account. That's my solution.
Okay.
Me too.
And I think everyone actually should delete their account, especially with Facebook. I don't have a Facebook. I still have an Instagram. But anyway, I just want to say real quick, when Facebook with the Hunter Biden story, and they said we're not going to let anybody share it, we're going to limit the spread of the Hunter Biden story originally published in the New York Post until we fact check it. I wonder where they get the confidence to say we're going to verify something that is an exclusive story to the New York Post. You can't cross-reference that anywhere. So what gave them the confidence, the certitude, the authority to know that they know that this is true when the New York Post has been around for 200 years more than Facebook has been
around? I believe it was started by Hamilton.
Right, and a very credible major newspaper. No one has ever said that the New York Post is publishing false information. Of course, they have mistakes like any other publication does.
Right.
But for Facebook or Twitter to come out and say, no, we need to fact check that first, when nobody else has this information, it's new, it's exclusive. So for them to make that determination, I'm inching closer. I don't know what the answer is. I honestly don't have any proposals, but there's something very wrong with that.
And Brock, are you... Oh, okay. We got to move on. But Brock, I still got this question for you, man, because what are your thoughts on Dr. Anthony Fauci's leadership combating the COVID-19 pandemic, and would you do something differently?
Yeah, so back in March and April, I would have probably relied on our Constitution as my defense and operated according to that document. But I understand the reaction, us being in a state of emergency, because you didn't know, we didn't have sufficient data. We've had a lot of data for months now, and we have to open up American business again. American business owners understand how to protect themselves, protect their employees, and protect their customers. We've got procedures, we've got protocols, we know how to operate safely. Those restaurant owners know how to run their business better than our government does. And if you don't want to open up, don't open up. If you don't want to work, don't work. And if you don't want to go out and consume, don't consume. And if you're at risk, you need to quarantine. But the idea that we are shutting down this country, destroying our economy, ruining a whole generation of kids. They got to be able to get back to school. The kids are not that much at risk, not much more than the flu. And we're
what about the teachers? Because my mother's a teacher, and she could be a high risk. I mean, don't you feel like you're putting teachers and faculty and the staff and with the threat with the COVID-19 that we're seeing with older Americans?
Well, as I said, I think you give people choice. That's what this country is about choice. If that teacher doesn't want to be able to come in, maybe there's a way to do it.
But do you think the school district is really going to think like that, though? Because it's either going to, you think it's going to be possibly hybrid where they show up 2 days and then the next, Thursday and Friday is going to be online? I mean, what are you suggesting, Brock? You're saying that the younger teachers go in?
Our kids have to be able to go to school. And ultimately, we can get into education. I have an issue with education itself. I think our education system is more a system of indoctrination than education. We're not teaching the basic skills that people need, like financial literacy, dispute resolution, all sorts of stuff.
Right.
I think we need real educational reform. The next generation, the youth of this country are our future, and we need an effective education for everyone. But our kids have to be able to get back to school. We are causing mental health issues, long-term trauma that we are going to pay for decades to come.
That's great. And let me throw this at Eddie, because if a vaccine was approved today, would you take it?
Probably not. I went ahead and I've never gotten a flu shot before, but everyone's saying get a flu shot. So I went ahead and got it. I just kind of have weird feelings about putting things into your body that necessarily don't need to be there. But on that point, I just want to say that the vaccine, people are acting like that's the finish line. Nothing goes away because of a vaccine. Even when you distribute it all, because of all the not the regulations, but the shutdowns and the mask and all these CDC guidelines, that doesn't go away because there's a vaccine. A vaccine which at most might be, I think Fauci said just yesterday or something, maybe 70% effective. This is not, we should be looking at treatments, the therapeutics. You get sick, you need to go to the hospital, they can treat you to get better. The vaccine is basically a shot in the dark, just like the flu shot is. So that we're hung up on this and believe that that's some kind of deadline or some kind of finish line. It's just not the case.
Well, let me throw the same question to Brock. Just before we move on. Yeah. But hey, Brock, I mean, you got enough pit coins to buy a vaccine quickly, before anybody else. I mean, would you take it?
Absolutely not. It hasn't been sufficiently tested. And so for me, I'm not at risk.
But what if it was approved by the FDA and they say it's ready to go? You're not going to take it?
I'm not at risk. I don't get flu shots either. Now, if I had pre-existing conditions, if I were elderly, it might be a different answer. I'm 39 years old. I rarely get sick. I'm not personally concerned. I'm not worried about COVID killing me in any way. And so I would prefer I want to make sure that it's been scientifically tested, it's gone through the scientific process, and it's being rushed. Vaccines normally take 4 to 12 years. This one's being done in under a year. I don't want to be the guinea pig because I don't feel I'm at risk. And so the answer is no.
I think that's fair because I feel the same way. I'd rather have the older generations take it first if they're the biggest high risk. But Brock and Eddie, I want to leave enough time for you guys to have 30 seconds to leave a message for the millennial audience tuning in for the Chris Collins Show Millennial Talk Show. And what should they be thinking about voting this November 3rd? Brock, let's start with you.
Well, first of all, remember to vote. Remember to vote. That is your civil duty. It is your civil responsibility. 50% of the population of the planet is under the age of 35. The youth of this country are the sleeping giant. And when they wake up and they're ready for change, we're going to get it. Remember to vote. Remember to vote your conscience. And Eddie, I'd like to invite you, if you're in Washington, D.C., I will be there on election night at my new house. If you'd like to join us, please do so on November 3rd.
Very cool. I like that. Hey, Eddie, so 30 seconds. What do you want to leave for the millennial audience voting on November 3rd?
Well, yes, I would definitely like to join you. That would be fun. And I appreciated so much of what you had to say. The one major disagreement I have is if you are not voting for Trump, do not remember to vote. Do not go out and vote. That is why my book is Go Up and Vote for Trump. why 2020 is your last chance to become an adult. I lay it all out. Again, you may not like the way the president tweets, the way he talks. You may not want him as your Thanksgiving dinner guest, but growing up, it means voting for Trump because it's your future, it's your safety, it's your 401k, it's your children, and that's what you got to do.
Well, so Eddie, on that note, if you're saying if you're not going to vote for Trump, you know, you could conceivably say, well, then you should vote for Brock, and a vote for Brock is a vote for our future. No?
Okay, fine.
You guys are too nice.
So much.
Well, I want to thank you again, Brock Pierce, for joining the Chris Collins Show, and Eddie Scarry as well. And much success for you guys moving forward. Thank you again for joining the Millennial Talk Show.
Thanks, guys.